What if the reason nothing is working is because you're trying too hard to make it work? Not in the way people usually say that, but in a deeper, quieter way. The kind that lives underneath your thoughts. The kind you feel in your chest when you're alone at night, replaying the same worries, the same plans, the same unanswered questions. Have you ever noticed how life seems to pull away the moment you chase it? Like a door that only opens when you stop pushing. Like sand that slips through your fingers the tighter you hold it. There's something almost cruel about it. You want love, so you reach for it, and it disappears. You want clarity, so you search harder, and your mind gets louder. You want things to finally fall into place, and everything feels stuck. But what if this isn't life punishing you? What if it's life responding to something you were never taught to notice? Ancient spiritual traditions whispered about this for centuries, that existence doesn't respond to force. It responds to state, to the energy you're breathing into the moment without realizing it. Because there's a hidden difference between desire and desperation, between intention and tension, between moving forward and gripping the future like it might run away from you. The strange part is this: most people only experience alignment after they give up controlling everything, after they're exhausted, after they finally say, "I can't do this anymore." And something inside them loosens. And suddenly, without effort, things begin to shift. Not because they stopped caring, but because they stopped suffocating life with fear. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, that's not random. And if something in you is already leaning closer to this message, trust that instinct. You might want to subscribe now, quietly, without pressure, not as a promise to me, but as a signal to yourself that you're ready to see life differently. Because what you're about to understand isn't about giving up on what you want. It's about discovering why everything you want has been waiting for the exact moment you finally let go. And the real question is, what is your grip costing you right now? And what has life been trying to give you all along? There is a moment when people begin to sense that something is happening beneath the surface of their lives. Not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly, almost invisibly. It often starts in ordinary moments. You wake up from a dream that feels too real to ignore. Not symbolic in an obvious way, but emotional. The kind of dream that lingers in your body long after your eyes open. You don't remember every detail, yet the feeling stays with you all day, like a quiet echo asking to be understood. Or you experience a sudden heaviness in your chest for no clear reason. Nothing bad has happened. Your life, on paper, looks fine. And yet your body reacts as if it knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. Sometimes it's a strange sense of déjà vu. Sometimes it's a pull toward silence. Sometimes it's exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. And you start to wonder, why now? Why me? Most people dismiss these moments. They call them stress, overthinking, coincidence. But deep down, something in you knows that explanation feels incomplete, because these sensations don't feel random. They feel intentional. You might notice patterns too. The same numbers appearing again and again. The same message showing up through different people. The same themes repeating in your life, no matter how hard you try to escape them. And perhaps the most confusing part is that these signs often appear when you're trying your hardest to hold everything together. When you're planning, controlling, managing outcomes, holding your breath, afraid that if you relax even slightly, everything will fall apart. That's usually when the body speaks first. A tight jaw, shallow breathing, restlessness at night, an unexplainable urge to step back, even though your mind insists you should push forward. It's as if something deeper is asking for space. People rarely talk about this, but many spiritual awakenings don't begin with light or bliss. They begin with confusion, with discomfort, with a quiet inner resistance that says, "This way you're living, something about it is no longer aligned." And that's unsettling, because you've been taught that clarity comes from thinking more, trying harder, figuring everything out. So when signs arrive instead of answers, it feels threatening. You question yourself. You wonder if you're imagining things. You tell yourself to be rational, but the signs keep coming. The dreams become more vivid. Your intuition grows louder. Your body reacts faster than your thoughts. And beneath all of it, there's a subtle message repeating itself in different forms. Stop gripping. Stop forcing. Stop trying to control what is already moving. If any of this feels familiar, you're not broken. You're not behind. And you're definitely not alone. You're simply beginning to hear a language that most people were never taught to listen to. If this resonates, subscribing isn't about content. It's about staying connected to a perspective that helps you decode these moments instead of ignoring them. Because once you realize these signs aren't random, a much bigger question appears. What if your dreams, your body, and your intuition aren't warning you of failure, but preparing you for a shift you've been unconsciously resisting? And if that's true, what exactly are they trying to guide you toward? There is a sign that appears before almost every major inner shift, yet most people misunderstand it completely. They think it means something is wrong. They think it means they're failing. They think it's a signal to push harder. But ancient teachings spoke of it as a threshold. This first great spiritual signal is resistance without a clear cause. Not resistance from the world, but from within. It shows up when the path you're forcing no longer matches the rhythm of who you're becoming. In old traditions, this was described as the moment when the soul begins to pull away from the ego's grip. The ego wants certainty, timelines, guarantees. The soul wants alignment, growth, and truth, even if it means uncertainty for a while. So what does resistance look like in real life? It looks like suddenly losing motivation for things you once chased obsessively. It looks like success that feels strangely empty. It looks like answers that no longer satisfy you. It looks like effort that drains instead of energizes. And here's the part most people never hear. This resistance is not telling you to quit. It's telling you to stop forcing the wrong frequency. Imagine trying to tune a radio by twisting the knob aggressively, desperate to hear music. The harder you turn, the more static you create. But when you slow down, when you soften your grip, the signal clears. Life works the same way. Ancient mystics taught that when energy meets resistance, it's not a wall. It's a signal to change how you're moving, not where you're going. This is why people often experience physical sensations during this phase: tight shoulders, heavy breathing, a knot in the stomach. These aren't random stress responses. They're feedback. The body reacts when the mind refuses to let go. There's an old saying that was passed down quietly, never taught publicly because it contradicted control-based thinking. What resists effort is asking for trust. When you chase love and feel blocked, it's not love rejecting you. It's fear shaping your approach. When you chase success and feel stuck, It's not failure. It's misalignment between intention and energy. When clarity refuses to arrive no matter how much you analyze, it's because clarity doesn't come from force. It comes from space. This is why so many breakthroughs happen after surrender. Not dramatic surrender, not giving up on life, but subtle surrender. The moment you stop saying, "This must happen now," or "I'm not okay," and start saying, "I will move forward, but I trust a timing I cannot see." In ancient circles of knowledge, this moment was considered sacred. It meant the seeker had reached the edge of conscious control and was about to step into alignment. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop gripping is the moment energy begins to reorganize itself around you. Opportunities don't rush in loudly. They slide in quietly. Conversations shift. People respond differently. Paths appear that weren't visible when you were staring too hard at one outcome. This is not belief. It's observation. Those who have walked this path before always describe the same thing. Less effort, more precision, less panic, more momentum. If this revelation resonates, gently acknowledging it, even by liking this video or subscribing, is a way of signaling that you're open to this deeper layer of understanding. Not to follow someone, but to step into a shared field of awareness with others who are questioning force and rediscovering flow. Because once you recognize resistance as a message instead of a problem, a far more unsettling realization begins to surface. If resistance isn't stopping you, what exactly has been waiting for you to step out of its way? There was a time in my life when everything looked right on the outside, but felt unbearably heavy on the inside. I was doing all the things I was supposed to do, setting goals, making plans, staying disciplined, telling myself that if I just tried harder, stayed sharper, moved faster, something would finally click. But instead of progress, I felt resistance everywhere. I remember waking up one morning before sunrise. The room was quiet, almost unnaturally still. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own breathing. My chest felt tight, not from fear exactly, but from effort, from carrying too much for too long. I sat on the edge of the bed and realized something that scared me. I was exhausted from trying to make life happen, not tired in my body, tired in my spirit. That same week, small things started falling apart. A plan I had obsessed over collapsed at the last minute. A conversation I thought would change everything went nowhere. A door I had been pushing on for months quietly closed. My first reaction was panic. The familiar voice rushed in. "You can't stop now. If you let go, you'll lose everything." So I pushed harder, and life pushed back. Until one evening, something strange happened. I was walking alone, no phone, no music, just the sound of my footsteps and the wind brushing against trees. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't try to figure anything out. I didn't ask why. I didn't plan my next move. I didn't replay old conversations. I just walked. And in that simple moment, I felt it. A subtle release. Like unclenching a muscle you didn't realize you were tightening all day. Nothing dramatic happened. No signs in the sky. No sudden answers. But something inside me softened. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in months. Over the next few days, I stopped forcing decisions. I still showed up. I still took action. But I stopped dragging fear behind every step. And this is where things changed. People reached out unexpectedly. A conversation I wasn't chasing reopened itself, differently, An opportunity appeared that fit better than the one I had been begging for. It felt effortless, not because I stopped caring, but because I stopped needing outcomes to prove my worth. I later learned this experience mirrored something ancient teachings describe as the reversal point, the moment when energy shifts from tension to trust. Looking back, I can see that everything I thought I lost was never meant to stay in that form. And everything that arrived did so when my hands were finally open. What moves me most is realizing how many people are standing exactly where I was, thinking their struggle means they're failing, when in truth, it means they're close to alignment. If you're still here, and this story feels familiar, you're part of that group. And subscribing isn't about following me. It's about staying connected to a space where these experiences are spoken aloud, without judgment, without pretending they don't exist. I'd also love to hear from you. Have you ever experienced a moment when things only began to move after you stopped forcing them? A dream that shifted your direction? A physical sensation that warned you before change arrived? A loss that later revealed itself as protection? Write it in the comments. I read them, and some of them shape what I share next, because there's something even deeper beneath this story. Something most people never realize about why letting go works, and what it awakens when you finally do. There is a second spiritual signal that appears once you stop fighting resistance. And this one is quieter, subtler, and far more powerful. Most people miss it because it doesn't arrive as an event. It arrives as a pause, a strange slowing down of momentum, a gap between actions, a space where nothing seems to be happening. And yet everything feels charged. Ancient teachings describe this as the fertile stillness, the moment when energy reorganizes itself before movement returns in a new form. Modern minds often interpret this pause as stagnation or delay. Spiritually, it is anything but. This is the signal. When life asks you to pause without fear, it is preparing alignment. You'll recognize it by how it feels. Externally, things may look calm or even empty. Internally, there's a strange mix of relief and discomfort. You're no longer panicking, but you're not certain either. Plans feel less urgent. Old desires feel quieter. You're not chasing, but you're also not numb. This is not apathy. This is recalibration. In ancient schools of consciousness, this phase was considered sacred because it's when the nervous system exits survival mode. When you're no longer reacting to life, but listening to it. Here's why this matters. When you're constantly moving, forcing, striving, your energy broadcasts noise. Life responds with friction. But when you enter this pause, not through giving up, but through trust, your energy becomes coherent. And coherence is magnetic. This is why people often say, things started coming together when I stopped trying to make them happen. They weren't doing less. They were interrupting less. Now, here's the practical part. Because this wisdom isn't meant to stay abstract, there is a simple technique used across multiple ancient traditions to recognize and deepen this signal. It doesn't require belief, only presence. It's called the open hand check. At least once a day, pause whatever you're doing and ask yourself one question. What am I gripping right now? Not physically, energetically. Is it an outcome? A person's response? A timeline? An identity you're afraid to lose? Then do something deceptively simple. Take one slow breath and say, silently or out loud, I will act, but I release the demand. That's it. You don't abandon your goals. You don't stop showing up. You simply remove the pressure that suffocates flow. What this does is powerful. It signals safety to your nervous system. It tells your subconscious you're no longer operating from fear. And life, which mirrors internal states, begins responding differently. People notice it first in small ways. A conversation feels easier. A decision becomes clearer. An idea arrives without effort. Then, in larger ways, opportunities feel timed instead of chased. Connections feel mutual instead of forced. Progress feels natural instead of exhausting. This is why the pause is not empty. It's intelligent. And this is also why so many people sabotage it. The moment the pause arrives, fear whispers, "You're falling behind. You should be doing more. If you relax, you'll lose momentum." But those who trust the pause discover something shocking. Momentum doesn't disappear. It returns refined, aligned, directed, effortless in a way force never is. If you felt this pause recently, the quiet, the slowing, the strange sense of being held instead of pushed, this isn't life stalling you. It's life repositioning you. Subscribing here isn't about consuming more content. It's about staying connected to a space that understands these moments and doesn't rush past them. Because while this second signal is powerful, there is a third signal that almost no one recognizes. It appears only after you've stopped forcing and learned to trust the pause. It doesn't feel gentle. It feels inevitable. And once you understand it, you'll realize why certain events in your life could never have unfolded any other way. There is a final spiritual signal that appears only after everything else has been stripped away. After resistance, after the pause, after you've stopped gripping the future with fear disguised as effort. This signal doesn't whisper, it doesn't nudge, it rearranges reality. Ancient texts described it as the moment the path chooses the traveler. Mystics called it alignment. Modern physics hints at it when it speaks of coherence, collapse of probability, and the moment potential becomes form. But most people experience it without language. They just feel it. It arrives as inevitability, not urgency, not pressure, but a deep, unshakable knowing. This is happening, and it cannot be stopped. This is the signal almost no one talks about, because it only appears when the ego is no longer in control. You'll recognize it by how different it feels from desire. Desire is anxious. Hope is restless. But this is calm. It's the strange peace you feel even when circumstances haven't changed yet. It's certainty without evidence, movement without force. In esoteric Christianity, this was described as walking by faith, not by sight. Not blind belief, but alignment with something already written at a deeper level than logic. In quantum language, it's the moment the observer stops collapsing outcomes through fear, and reality resolves itself through coherence instead. Here is the truth hidden in all of these teachings. When you stop interfering with life, life stops negotiating. Up until this point, life was responding to your tension, your urgency, your need to control timing and form. But when you release that grip, not by giving up, but by trusting, something ancient activates. You are no longer asking life to meet you halfway. Life begins meeting you fully. This is why, at this stage, events feel orchestrated. People arrive at exactly the right moment. Doors open without explanation. What once felt delayed suddenly feels perfectly timed. And what's most unsettling, is that you realize this was always in motion. You didn't create it. You didn't manifest it through effort. You simply stopped blocking it. There's a line from an old mystical teaching that was never meant for the masses because it dismantles control. What is meant for you does not require urgency. Read that again. Slowly. Urgency belongs to fear. Alignment belongs to truth. This is why the deepest awakenings don't come with fireworks. They come with stillness, with humility, with the quiet realization that life is far more intelligent than your plans. And if you're feeling this now, this calm recognition, this sense that something is aligning beyond your effort, it's not imagination. It's resonance. If this message is landing, if something in you feels seen rather than convinced, take a moment to like this video. Not as an algorithmic action, but as an energetic one. It helps this work reach others who are standing at the same threshold. And if you choose to subscribe, know that this space exists to explore these truths with sincerity, not spectacle. Passion over profit, depth over noise. Because here's the most profound part of this final signal. Once you feel inevitability, you stop asking if your life will change. You start asking who you must become to receive what's already on its way. And that question changes everything. Because if life is already moving toward you, if the alignment is already set, then the last mystery isn't about the future at all. It's about what you're being prepared for right now, and why the version of you that's emerging couldn't have arrived any sooner. If you've stayed until now, it's because something inside you already knew this wasn't just a video. It was a reminder, a remembering. Every signal we spoke about, the resistance, the pause, the inevitability, they were never meant to confuse you or slow you down. They were invitations, quiet calls asking you to wake up to a deeper rhythm that has always been guiding your life, even when you thought everything was falling apart. Nothing you experienced was random. Not the delays, not the endings, not the moments where you felt completely out of place in your own life. Those were not mistakes. They were adjustments. Awakening doesn't begin when life gives you everything you want. It begins when life removes what you no longer need, especially the illusion that you must chase your worth, your future, or your place in the world. The signs didn't appear because you were weak. They appeared because you were ready. Ready to stop living in reaction. Ready to stop confusing effort with alignment. Ready to stop gripping a version of life that could never hold the fullness of who you're becoming. When you let go, it's not because you stopped believing. It's because you started trusting. Trusting that life isn't late. Trusting that silence isn't empty. Trusting that what's meant for you doesn't need to be hunted. It needs to be met. And here's the most hopeful truth of all. You don't need to become someone else to receive what's coming. You don't need to fix yourself. You don't need to prove anything. You only need to stay open. Open hands receive. Clenched fists only hold tension. Your journey, with all its confusion, longing, and quiet breakthroughs, is part of something larger than personal success or failure. It's part of a collective remembering, a shift toward living with presence instead of panic, trust instead of fear, alignment instead of force. And when enough people begin to live this way, life itself responds differently. If this message reached you, let it land fully. Let it breathe inside you. And if you feel called, make this moment real. leave a comment with your name and the city you're watching from. I read them, and I'll be sharing special acknowledgements in the next video. Not as a performance, but as recognition. Because this isn't an audience, it's a circle. If this resonated, like the video to anchor it, and subscribe if you want to stay connected to a space where depth matters more than noise, and where this wisdom is explored with care, not urgency. Because your next chapter isn't about chasing something new. It's about realizing that what you've been searching for has been moving toward you the moment you finally learned how to let go.